Hi guys, Craig here. Welcome to another edition of the podcast, Tell Craig Your Story. Today we'll be speaking to Dania Gu. Now Diana was born in Taipei, China, where she has directed more than 10 plays in Taiwan. She has worked on Accompany You to the End, Dream, That Period of Time in the Cuckoo's Nest. And while she's been in Shanghai, she's also been a part of the Sha Fu Club, Shanghai International Art Festival, I Want to Fly With You, Shanghai Drama Center, Black Cat Sheriff, Original Music, and the Shanghai Fashion Week, as well as the Shanghai Auto Show. Now she's also graduated from the New York University in the Department of Performing Arts. Now Diana is currently the creative director of the Red Box, where she gets some of the biggest stars in China and brings them to Shanghai, where they perform all different types of cabaret and Broadway-like shows. Now on December the 1st, they made an announcement that they are going to be a partner with the Pearl Theatre. Now we've previously had the owners of the Pearl Theatre, Grant O, on the podcast, and Frank Bray. And the Red Box has been given the opportunity to perform every Thursday night. They do some of the biggest songs from musicals, like Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Fan of the Opera, and The Greatest Showman. But before we go, please go to our website. We're at Podbean. Tell Craig Your Story at podbean.com. We have a link tree there which tells you where Tell Craig Your Story podcast is streaming. We are on all the major streaming services: Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple iTunes, to name a few. We have a YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribing to get all the latest updates and give us a like as well. We're on all the social medias: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have VK for our Russian listeners and WeChat for our Chinese listeners, at Tell Craig Your Story. Now, I'd like to give a big shout out to the sponsor of this podcast. It is none other than Will's Tailor Shop. Now, Mr. Zhao created Will's Tailor Shop with the goal of becoming an unrivaled, high-end tailor-made brand. The brand adheres to the artist spirit and stitches each piece with excellence. They have a wide selection of exclusive fabrics created from the world's rarest fibers to meet high-end occasions in all fields. Will's Tailor Shop owns 6 stores in Shanghai, Suzhou, and Taizhen. The flag shop is located in Hunan Road in Shihui District, Shanghai. And the best person to get in contact with is the lovely Janet. Alright, this is part 1 of my chat with Dania Gu on Tell Craig Your Story podcast. Hi Dania, how are you doing today?
Hi Craig, how are you? I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Extremely busy girl. Happy New Year. I know we're in February already.
But still Chinese New Year, so
Chinese
you're
New
allowed
Year.
to say that. So
Yes.
Happy Chinese New Year.
So how did you celebrate Chinese New Year?
Non-stop eating for 4 days straight.
Right.
So I cooked a home meal on Christmas, on New Year's Eve. On New Year's Eve 4 days ago. And so what we do is, if I invite 10 friends to come over on New Year's Eve, we switch houses. So we will go to another friend's place on New Year's Day, and then the next day, and then the next day. So non-stop eating for 4 days already.
Wow.
I feel so bloated.
And do you go back to work? Is it like work is normal?
Work is
Monday?
normal. I think I start my rehearsal on Monday.
Right.
So, yeah, so it's back to work.
And a review for you for 2021. I mean,
Okay.
lots of things happened for you in 2021.
Yeah. So 2021 was very interesting because we just came through the pandemic, came out of it from the 2020. So 2021 was very hopeful for me personally, especially with my career. I direct and wrote a brand new play, and it was put up, major production, huge production. And that was really cool because I haven't really done that in about 3 years. So that was an original play, and with a huge puppet. We had a puppet horse on the stage and stuff.
Wow.
And so it was really, really awesome. That was great. And still touring around China. So that was really cool. With the new brand, the Red Box, was created in 2021 over the summer. So that was really cool too. Like, it was kind of just happened. It wasn't something that I've been planning for 10, 20 years. It just happened. And so a lot of changes. And I think also for me personally, our daughter turned 13 last year. So she's a teenager now. And I think for a lot of parents who have children during COVID, the relationship between your child and you can be very different, because I've never spent that much time at home with her.
Yes.
Ever since she was born, probably the first 6 months, and then, she went to pre-kindergarten and all that. But during the whole COVID time, we spent a lot of time together. And last year, she was the first time she became a teenager. Right. And that transition was very new to me, and it was hard for her as well, I think. So that was huge on our personal life side part. It's like, I have to learn how to be a mom to a teenager. And I was like, I'm not used to that. I don't know how to be a mom teenager. I was a teenager not that long ago, So that was actually quite hard, to me. Yeah.
And speaking of that, we were talking before just about you watching movies and giving me like your review of all these great movies. There was one there called The Last Daughter, and I know that you were talking about your daughter and your experiences. So tell us a little bit about that. Okay, so
I really love the novelist who wrote The Lost Daughter. She's the novelist who wrote My Brilliant Friend, and was also produced to a TV series. And when I saw that movie, like, there were times when mother just say, I'm sorry, I'm done. I need to just leave the two of you. I think if the role was reversed, like if a man said that or a father says that, it was a lot easier for the society to forgive him. But for the mothers, it's just so judgmental. Sometimes a mom just say, you know what, I just need to take a break. I need half an hour to myself. Don't come and talk to me. Like, just pretend I'm not here. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It just means that I just need that half an hour, to myself. And I think it's very difficult for people who don't have children to understand that, or sometimes even for people to have children and they don't understand why the maternal instinct, it's not something natural to me. And I think it's the same thing for a lot of women. That people always say, "Oh, you're a mother, so you should understand this." I'm like, no, I don't understand any of this. Nobody ever taught me how to become a mom. My mom was a professional woman since my entire life. I remember she was going to work every day, so I was taking care of myself since I was very, very young, because she wouldn't get home until 9 o'clock. So I had to become very independent. So that means I'm not used to the whole idea of being a stay-at-home mom until during COVID. So I had to be a stay-at-home mom because she couldn't go to school. So that was the first time I had to think about how to prepare 3 meals a day. I never had thought of that. The school feed 1 meal, right? So I had to at least I only had to think about 2 meals a day. But doing that whole entire 6-7 months, I had to be cooking literally 3 meals a day, and that was a lot of taking out of me. And so I think the idea of the lost daughter, like, I really relate to that. Because she is such a brilliant woman. Like, she's an academic and she's so brilliant in so many ways. It's just because she had 2 daughters, that doesn't take that intelligence away from her. But sometimes she does feel that, because you just being with your children can be so frustrating, no matter how much you love them, and I think the society should really give women a little bit more space in that sense, And I'm so fortunate that I have a husband who really understands that, and who has no problem just getting there and do the cooking and do the cleaning and stuff. So during the COVID was hard because he was in another city. So I was literally alone with my daughter for 6-7 months. So that was the tough part. But when he's around, then that's not a problem. He's very, very hands-on with her, and it's actually better than me in a lot of sense. Because mother-daughter can get very competitive.
Yes.
Very competitive. Even for me and my mother, I even to this day, I can sense that. I don't know why, but it's just there. But father and daughter, it's something, it's more ease with that relationship. So I'm really happy that my husband can be back in Shanghai.
Yes.
Yeah, last year. So that really did help. Yeah.
So you were in Shanghai with your daughter.
Yeah.
Where was your husband?
In Dalian, another city, because
right.
he was back in. He got hired as an international recruiter for a huge education company. A month before COVID happened. So the idea was that like he would take on this role and he would be flying like globally every month to recruit teachers. Yes. And that didn't happen because of COVID. And the head office is in Dalian. So it was never like the plan that he would move to Dalian. Dalian was just a place he would go and have meetings and then flying back to Shanghai and go over there. And then because of COVID, like it's just like that's the situation that we didn't plan. So yeah, that was hard.
And speaking of COVID, it's affected everyone.
Yeah.
Everybody's had to change, adapt. So you've already talked about being away from your husband and just being with your daughter. So it said on your Facebook that you've had 36 acid nuclear tests.
I did. It was funny because I really think they should give us one of those stamps.
Yeah.
If you get 10, you get the other one for free, or like get a free coffee.
Yeah.
Like you buy 10 coffee, you get the 11th one free. Yeah, because I'm in the industry, like I direct car shows. I'm a show director and a theater director. So China has a really strict policy with people who go into those conventions. So as somebody who has to put up a lot of shows, every time we go in, we have to do a test within 40 hours.
Yes.
Or like for traveling, for going to another city, so I've done this so many times at this point. I lost count. I feel like I should get a reward card or something like that.
Yeah. I was saying also that during this period, even your performers and actors, they had to go into quarantine as well recently.
Oh, that was a funny story. So what happened was, I think it was the first week of January. Yeah. There was a case at a tea shop on Yuan Road. And I'm in the middle of a rehearsal with a new production, and I have 10 actors. And at that day, we hired a photographer to come in to make a little video for them and taking their pictures. So I was not supposed to go in until 4 o'clock in the afternoon for rehearsal afterwards. And doing 11 to 4 is their photo shoot time. So the photographer went in and did all the filmings for 5 hours. And after that, around 10 o'clock at night, I think, they start getting calls. All my actors are getting calls that they all need to be put in quarantines. And I was like, why? Because the studio, the rehearsing studio, is nowhere near Jing'an. Our space is all the way in Yangpu. So it's like totally different district. Like, it makes no sense. And they said because the photographer, before he went in to do the shooting, he went to the Jing'an tea place and bought two bubble teas and stuff, and then one of the staff was tested positive at a tea shop. So it considered as a direct contact. And then because he went directly from the tea shop to the rehearsing space without the mask on, and with the actors being in the same space for over 6 hours, that means all the actors who are being in close contact with him has to be put in to quarantine. So it was really funny because all the actors was called by different district where their residents are, and they all get picked up by different ambulance and then put into different hotels.
Oh, really? Wow!
For 14 days straight, which is it's a big blow for the producer, because it's a kind of an ongoing rehearsal process. Means that like we have shows at the same time as we are rehearsing for the next one. So that means the producer have to cancel at least 20 shows.
Oh, dear.
For that 14 days, and which is a lot of money.
Yeah. So was the red box or was the pearl performance?
The pearl was fine. Yeah, right. It was fine. This is totally for another production. Directing. Yeah, so I'm doing at least three or four things at the same time. That's what you do in our business. Yeah. If you don't have more than 3 or 4 things going on, then you can't leave. You can't survive in this city. It's too expensive. Yeah.
So 2020 was when the COVID hit.
Yeah.
What were you doing at that time? And then tell us what you had to sort of change.
Yeah. So I started working since I was 19 years old. So I when I was in universities, during the summer, I would go back to Taiwan. I'm a film photographer, so I would direct. I would take a team and I start taking on projects here and there. So I never stopped working since I was 19. And during COVID that 7 months was the first time in my life that I just didn't have any job. Any kind of job for 7 months. I was freaking out because it's just so you just don't know when you will have the next job, and I was very nerve-wracking. So I started to do live streaming because that's what you do if you are a creative person, and then you have so much to say, and then you want the world to hear you. That's what you do. So I started live streaming for like 3-4 months. Yeah, I did. And I had my own channel with Huajiao. So every Thursday night, we'll call the director's chat room. So I will invite somebody from different industries, like you invite people to come up to my channel, and I will chat for 2 hours.
And how is that? Is that still going? Or
no, I basically stopped it as soon as I have my first job.
Right.
I was like, it's not for me. I mean, I know for a lot of people who loves to do it, and they're very serious about it, and you have to be incredibly dedicated to it.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be so disciplined. Yeah. And I am not.
Yeah. So it was a live stream.
It was live stream.
So it's all about the editing and promoting and marketing.
It's marketing, and also it's the content, and you have to really do your preparation before it's time. It doesn't matter how well you know that person. It's different, especially with video, right? It's not just voice, so you have to make sure it's interesting visually as well.
Yes.
If it's just 2 people sitting there and talk for 2 hours, nobody's going to watch you.
That's right.
You have to be able to interact with whatever people coming up on the screen asking questions. You have to be able to do the feedback, and sometimes you have to become a very good host because otherwise, whatever you're preparing, you can be distracted by people's Q&A, and then you totally go into the other direction, and you have to track them back to where you want them to be. So that was a cool experience. I would say after 3-4 months, I've become a much better host now. Like, I can actually sit down and interview people in a way that I never would or never could.
And a bit of confidence,
Yes, a lot more confidence in terms of interact with the other viewers as well. And it was fun, I would say, especially when I get a really interesting interesting person next to me, and I just feel that she or he can carry the conversation without me putting so much in it, and that's fun. But sometimes I'm just like, I'm just dragging things out. Like, for instance, I had a great friend, and he would know this. He's okay totally with this thing. Like, I asked him throughout his life being the tour guide, and he's a very famous tour guide. Like, he would organize private tour, go to very exotic locations around the world, right? And I say, you've been doing this for like 30 years.
Wow.
You must have so many fascinating stories. So I'm like, so can you please tell me one story that's like you feel like that was very scary or very stressful, like something happened to one of your team members, and any dangers ever occur during your 30-year experience? And he said, not really. And I was like, okay. I was preparing 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks for coming. Bye.
He's like, not really. I'm like, so you're telling me in the 30 years of your, traveling experience, professional career, that you never have somebody lost their passport, or you never have somebody miss a flight, miss a bus, or like, so you couldn't, or something like that happens when you travel, right?
Yeah.
Even when we travel, that happens.
Yeah.
And then he said, no, I think I'm just very blessed by God.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, okay, you know what? Let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about food.
Yeah.
You know what's your favorite restaurant? It's the best Istanbul or something.
Oh, dear.
So it's just
Tough.
like, come on, give me
Yeah.
something. I couldn't get anything off of it.
Well, like I was saying before, you get some people that, you just want to, you guide through it and you just sort of get them on the same path, and then there's some that's like you said before,
like, come on, give me more. That's it.
Just something. Okay, let's wrap it up.
Okay. And I'm like, that's another 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
I only did this for 30 minutes. We need to do 2 hours.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh dear. Yes. Well, I'm glad that I'm not the only one that's actually had that experience. As well.
I mean, that's something I think I can share with you. I was like, the moment I'm like, I'm quitting. I'm not doing it.
Yes.
I'm like, no way.
You want to make sure the next one is like a talkaholic.
Yes, because when they were willing to share more, your job or my job becomes easier. It's a lot easier.
Definitely. Yeah. So let's go back, way back, to where you were born.
Okay.
I do believe that you were born in Taiwan.
Yes, I was born in Taipei.
Taipei?
Yes.
So tell me, and especially for our international listeners, like, I haven't been there yet. I was going to go. It was on my list to see Guns N' Roses play in Taiwan.
Yeah.
And COVID, so I wasn't able to go. But tell us about growing up there.
Okay.
And your family upbringing.
Okay, so it was a very different time, of course.
Yes.
Yes, and I was, my grandparents, both my father's side and my mother's side, are from the mainland China during the war in 1949. So I was considered 外省人 means you are the out of state people. So you're not actually having generation people live there. So I was brought up by a very middle class family. Like my parents actually have one of the coolest jobs. Both of them work for MJIB. It's a lot like the FBI.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so my mom can really kick asses. So
that's handy.
she worked for the International Drug Reinforcement for a very long time. So she will go on a trip to Colombia and Japan and Middle East and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, seriously. And so, my parents would take turns disappearing.
I think I need to get your mother on the podcast as
well. Yes, and she's just so awesome and brilliant, and so many levels. But I really thought having one parent disappear from your life was very normal. Because that's what I had when I was little, right? So I really have both my parents in the same room because they will send them out, different agents to do different cases, but they always make sure there's one parent in the country. So I thought that was actually quite normal to not have both your parents at the same table until I was a lot older and talking to my other friends and say, no, your family is not normal like this.
So there's no 3 meals there, right?
No, it was very weird that to have a sit-down meal with both your parents. I don't know what to say. That's like, should we talk about something?
Yes.
But that was like I said, like my mom was just super awesome that way. Like she will go on to this very special cases that she would never tell me about.
Wow.
Yeah, and she will call me or she will phone me from a very distant country and say, okay, you got to remember where I put my bank cards and the deeds of the house and where is the safe, and I will tell you the code of the safe. I'm like, why do I need to know that?
Wow.
Yeah, right? Why do I need to know that? I don't want to know that. Like, why are you telling me this?
It's like a movie. It's like a action movie.
So that was funny because my favorite show when I was like 12, 13 was I think no, it was older. 16 was the X-Files.
Right.
X-Files came out. I was like, that's my parents. That's my parents. So yeah, so that's really cool.
Wow. So did that bother you that they were going in and out all the time, or you thought that was just like the norm?
I got sent away to boarding school when I was 12 years old. So I think they did try to provide me the normalcy of it by sending me to the boarding school, because at least I will have somebody to really take care of me.
Yes.
Like for my 3 meals a day, right? Because they couldn't really do that. So they really tried really hard in my ways, but I don't think that's possible to have a normal life if you grow up in that kind of family.
And did you have your grandparents? Because normally here now in China, if you have children, it's like bam, you go straight back to work, and the grandparents sort of look after
right?
it. Yeah,
not really.
No?
Not in my cases. They both my grandparents live, but quite far away from where we lived. And my mom was really strict on make sure the grandparents don't really get involved in child's education. So I'm okay with that. I was at that time, of course, I feel like maybe I should have the family meal putting on my table every day. But I knew since I was very young that it was never going to happen. But it did happen to me to the later of my life when I was in New Zealand. I went to New Zealand when I was in high school, so I stayed with a homestay, and my homestay parents are just the most lovely people, and they have 3 children, and they have 2 international students, me and another friend. So every night, my homestay mother will put on a meal with a table with all of us sitting there and eat. I'm just like, okay, so this is a family. So I'm like, well, that's what a family meals looks like. Okay, now I get it.
Right. And were you a shy person growing up?
Yes, very.
As a kid?
Yes, very, very much. I was a music major student, so I spent a lot of my time practicing piano and flute and singing. So that was what you'd chosen at the time? Yeah, I was just naturally really good at it.
Right.
And I think that's something you have to, either you have it or you don't.
Yes.
Like, because practicing can be so boring, like if you really hate it, and who does that every day 2-3 hours after school? You still have your homework and you still have to practice 2-3 hours minimum for a day, and if you don't like it, there's no way you can do it. Nobody can beat you out of it. I think beat you into it. I think you have to really love it, some part of you. And I was really good in music, and I was really bad academically when I was in Taiwan, because the way the education system is a lot like the local school in China. It's a lot of brutal memorization, and nobody really cares if you really understand what you memorize. Yes. You just have to memorize, and I was like, this sucks. That I had so many questions, and that was not fun. Nobody could answer me. And I suck in algebra and in all my math related subjects until I was in New Zealand. And I realized because back in Taiwan they teach you X, Y, Z, right? 3x plus 2y, and I was like, I never understood why it's X, Y, Z stands for until I was in New Zealand. I remember my math teacher bought up 2 papayas, 3 pineapples, and like 4 bananas. I'm like, okay, this all makes sense now. Okay, all right, so now I understand X, Y, Z, and I didn't realize that's all I needed is to visualize it. So people study in very different ways. And I think to me, I have to see it. If I don't see it, I just don't get it.
Yeah. And tell us about your music as well.
Yeah.
Piano is not the easiest instrument to play.
I hate it. I don't like piano. I like flute.
Flute?
Because I did learn violin, piano when I was very little. But as I was growing up, I joined a television station's choir. It's a children's choir for one of the major network like BBC in Taiwan. And I had an opportunity when I was 10 to do a European tour. So I visited Berlin before the war came down. So I had an opportunity to visit Hungary, Holland, Paris, Austria, Switzerland.
That's amazing.
When I was 10 years old. And that was really cool because back in the days, that was before the European Union.
Yeah.
You had to change monies in every single country. So I still remember I had a jar of all these different currencies. And every time we change a country, we have to change to another currency. That was so wild because they're like, now it's unthinkable. But back in the days, that's what they did.
Yes.
And so I had an opportunity to visit Europe when I was 10, and I think at that very moment I was like, I didn't want to stay in Taiwan anymore. I wanted to I wanted to see the world. I wanted to get out, and that was very that was a big influence for me as a 10 years old. So.
With the Chinese people, the mainland China, is that actually not just for China, but for anybody really. Once you go outside of your country and see things that are not normal,
you can't go back.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. My first trip was to go to Thailand, Vietnam, then Cambodia. And I was there for a month, and it was like,
You're like,
this is crazy. It's like a whole different world. It's a third world country. There was electrical wires, like
you didn't think that
300 had ladies with fruit on their head, and it was just
and then it really opens up your view of life.
And then I come back home, and it's like, okay, where am I going to go next?
Yes. And you couldn't settle anymore, and that was the seed planted in me since I was 10. I was like, no, I couldn't. For most people in Taiwan, their first country when they leave, they stay in Asia, right? So they go to Japan, they go to Korea, they go to Hong Kong considerably. Like that's what they do. They don't. It's not their first trip is to go to the other continent,
like
and that's what I did. Like my first trip outside of my country was to go completely to the other side of the world, and that really changed me fundamentally. And I think that also at that point I knew music was my way out to see the world. So
So it says here that you also went to, it says Wesley Girls High School.
That's in Taiwan. Yes.
Taiwan.
That's a boarding school. And it's created by Chiang Kai-shek's wife, Jiang Meiling. Yes. So it's a very well-known school because back then was the only girls' boarding schools for the age of 12 to 17, 18. And I met some of the greatest people there. I still and even in Shanghai, we have an alumni group from the school.
Oh, right.
And, I was literally at somebody's house last night, and she was 5 years younger than me. And so I never met her when I was in school. But because we all came from that school, we really have that, just sense of responsibility that we take care of each other. We look out for each other, and we have that in every single city. So we have that in Shanghai, we have that in Beijing, we have that in LA, we have that in New York, we have that in London. Yeah, so there's an alumni for our girls
it's
group.
Bond.
It's a very strong bond. It's a very strong bond because our school is very, very strict. So we always say, like, I haven't met one single girl from Wesley that doesn't like to drink. Because I really feel like, because it was such a strict school, so we all have to rebound at some point in our life, and so we always, all of Wesley girls, we can drink. We love to drink because we couldn't have chocolate, we couldn't have any snack when we were in school. So the moment we have the chance to get our hands on it, we are going the other way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. And then, is that when you went to New Zealand for the...
Yes, I went to New Zealand when I was 14 years old.
Right.
Yes.
This was during...
Yes. Yeah, so I was in Wesley between 12 to 14, and 14 to 18 I was in New Zealand. Yes.
And you said, like, about the dining table and having dinner at separate times. So what was it like then going to New Zealand?
I wanted to get out ever since I was 10, and ever since I saw the world. I was telling my mom, like, I don't think staying in Taiwan was my path.
Yeah.
So I was asking her to look for any opportunities that I can be, sent out. So she did listen, and she did see I was struggling in school. So one of her friends was planning on sending their kid to New Zealand to a boarding school, and she's like, okay, can my daughter go as well? And I said, yeah, sure, she can just go through the same agency and send her over. So I didn't know anything about New Zealand.
Yeah.
Okay, when I was 14, I remember we had this how to say, like a Wikipedia book version of it, and it's basically a book talk about different continents, and you can look through it and find pages. I think there was 2 pages about New Zealand. And that's it. And I was like, where am I going? So my first year in New Zealand, I was in this town called Dannevirke. Dannevirke only had 6,000 people of a population. Okay, so there are more sheep than people. and I was living in Taipei, literally a metropolitan city, right? So you like went from there to here. Wow, great!
Like a village to compare to.
So it was crazy, but the thing is, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was. I still tell people that I believe New Zealand is the best place to grow anything. If you want to raise a dog, a cat, or any animal, you want to raise a kid, it's literally the best place to be. It's the nature of it, the food, and the culture of it, and people love to read. It's insane. Like you can meet a farmer in New Zealand, and you go to his house to have coffee, and then next to the coffee table is a pile of books that he's reading, and he's borrowing from the library and so on. It's just like. And that always fascinated me. I was like, wow, so people really enjoy reading, even though they are farmers, but they never stop them from learning. Yes. And that was incredible. Yes.
That's great. You didn't go to Australia?
Yes, I did. I went to visit Australia again through my choir, because I got into Wellington Youth Choir. My second year, I moved to Wellington and got into incredible school. And I joined the Wellington Youth Choir, and we got to go to Sydney to sing and stuff. So, and we also went to Melbourne. So I did go to Sydney and Melbourne. Yes, and I love Melbourne. Yes. I love amazing. Yes, I love the culture. I love the coffee shop. I love the people. Sydney is not so much. To me, Sydney is a lot like Auckland, and to me, it's a great city. But if I just want to go and hang out with my friends and have a more chilling lifestyle, I think I would prefer Melbourne over Sydney.
Agreed.
Where are you from?
I'm from Newcastle, which is just north of Sydney.
Okay.
So I agree with you. I think that Sydney is a great place to visit.
Yeah.
Newcastle has all the beaches. It has everything that Sydney has.
Yeah.
But like if you want to go to a concert or a sporting event that doesn't come to Newcastle, you just get on the train and you drive down to Sydney. Yeah. So, but we have better beaches than Sydney anyway. But if I had a choice to live, it would be probably Melbourne.
Yeah,
it's a little cold, but
it's just I don't know, the whole entire city. I just love. I fall in love with the landscape, and I love the culture. I love the markets there. It's just everything about Melbourne. I love. Yeah.
Speaking of traveling internationally, you then went to New York to do your major.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Okay, so
why did you choose New York?
Okay. So when I was 16 years old, 17, I met this girl. Her name's Moki Len, and she is Korean descent, but her mom married a Kiwi in New Zealand. So she is definitely Korean by blood, but she's also everything about her is very Kiwi.
Right.
And she is a cello genius. Like, I don't know if you ever heard Jacqueline Dupre. And I swear, the way she plays, sometimes it reminds me of how Jackie sounds.
Right.
And so she's a freaking genius, right? And she's younger than me, but we will be in the same music class. And we will be given the same sheet of music to learn. And even though I'm playing the flute part, she's playing the cello part, I have to learn at least 3 hours. It takes her 30 minutes.
Wow.
And that very moment, I knew there's a thing called genius. And I just literally met one. I never met a genius in my life before her. Yes. And when you see a genius, you know. And you know there's not enough amount of hard work or practice can ever be like her. You would not. It's especially with classical music. If you don't have it, you don't have it. And at that very moment, I was like, okay, if I'm pursuing classical music as a major in my university, I think I would be very miserable. Because, and you talk to any music major students, they don't really have a life outside of being practice. Yeah,
You're
so
right.
it's, you go
Absolutely
through
right.
different practice, and then, or you either practice on your own, or you practice in the orchestra, or you practice in the choir. It's always practice. It's just, you don't have a life. I remember my entire high school year in New Zealand. I have never go to a movie with friends after school. I just don't have the time to. Yeah, so even the weekends, most of I was also play in the church, so I was like literally, at my weekends I would go to see a movie on my own, but not with friends, because I didn't really have time to make friends outside of my orchestra, outside of my choir. So I totally missed out the whole inviting friends and then go out and hands. That never happened. So just when I was turning 17, I was asking myself, do I really want to keep doing that even when in college?
Yes.
And I was like, no, I don't think so. And I love drama. I have loved drama since I was very, very young. I just never took it very serious, because to my mother, playing instruments is seen as a higher choice of a career than being an actress or being in the theater world, because you can never make money in the theater world.
Right.
So I think to her, in her mind, that playing music is always better. But at that very moment, I knew I don't want to do it anymore. And also at that year, there's a director came out from New York. His name is An Lee.
Right.
And he's from Taiwan, and he went to NYU, and he just made his first couple films, and it was amazing.
Right.
So I was like, okay, you know what? That's what I want to do. I want to study film. I want to become a film major. And that's the moment I started to do the shifting in my career choice. So I was like, okay, I'm going, because if in order to become a film major, you have the sense of music. You need to have the sense of photography and all that. And I feel like I do have all that. So I can tell a story, I can write a story, and that just seems like a very natural turn for me. Yes. So that's why I stopped pursuing music, and I decided to apply for a film major.
Performing arts.
Yeah, performing arts.
And tell us about moving to New York City. I mean, that's a huge step again. You've gone from the small town in New Zealand to one of the biggest cities in the world. Yeah, so I went from Wellington to New York. It was like from literally heaven to hell. I did not expect that, because you gotta remember, all of my knowledge about New York, I saw it on TV or films. Yes. So we all romanticize certain cities, right? Paris is not Paris. But we are so kind of implanted with that kind of ideology with certain Paris is the romantic city. And then New York, you're waiting to be robbed every day, right? But that's not New York to me. New York to me was always a city was full of possibilities, and everything is possible. So that draws me to go to New York, and that's why I wanted to go to NYU. But it was a wake-up call from day one. Yeah. Like, I still remember when I landed at JFK, and I was waiting for my luggage to come out, and this guy came over to me and with a push cart and said, "Miss, can I help you with your luggage?" And I was like, "Oh my God, you're so nice!" You know, in New Zealand, always somebody there to help you with the luggage, because I just moved there, so of course I have like 2 giant suitcases. It was really heavy, and I was like, "Yeah, thank you, please." And then he moved the suitcase on my trolley, and I pushed over. And then he asked me for money. Yeah. I was like, what? I was like, what? $5. I didn't, but that to me was insane. Like, what? So that was a wake-up call. That was my first encounter after I landed. Welcome to the US. Okay, I guess I'm not in Kansas anymore. Yeah, that's what... like Dorothy would say, and I was like, no, it's not what you expected. Yes. I literally, when the plane landed, I had it's not just a New York plane in the back of my head, and then I landed. I'm like, okay, that's not just New York. But that Frank Sinatra, all these famous people were there. Yeah.
But of course, after a while, you realize, okay, so that's the real New York.
Yes.
So that's New York is that ruthless and not apologetic at all.
And did you grow into that sort of person?
Yeah, I hated myself after 4 years. I become so cynical. Like after, especially, I was there doing 9/11. That happened in my senior year. I was walking towards the school, and
tell us about that.
So that was a very beautiful September morning. I still remember it was just beautiful. There was no cloud in the sky, and I in the morning I was just walking to school because I live on First Avenue, and so it was very close. I'm between 6th and 7th Street, so it's walking distance to the NYU, to the campus. I was walking towards school, and I saw a wave of people walking up from downtown to uptown, like walking from the south to north. I was like, why is there so many people walking up north? I didn't understand why. I think I was just about 9 o'clock, and I saw people, but I didn't know what's happening. Right. So I was walking to that was before the smartphone or anything, so you couldn't get any information. Right. I walked to the campus, and the guard was immediately telling us that like there will be no class today. Everybody go home. And I was like, okay, why? But nobody was giving us any information because nobody knew at home. Nobody knew. So I was like, okay, no school, yay! Like any college student would think that, like, yay, party. So I was walking back to the apartment, and I saw the people would gather around cars, and the cars would turn on their radio, like, and to hear what's happening. So even I was so clueless, I knew something must going on, and I looked up to the sky. I was walking on, because the campus is on Broadway. I looked down, and I saw this black smoke from downtown, but I still didn't know what was happening. Yeah. So to me, it was like, okay, that's a really bad fire. Because that's what it looks like. It's just smokes. So I was like, okay, definitely some fires going on. So I went home, and I turned on my TV, and that's when I was like, okay, this is crazy, because you're not used to being in a country or a place where this can happen, right? And that's still that at that time. I still remember people, when the first plane went in, people think it was an accident. But it was when the second plane hit, people immediately knew, okay, something's going on. It's very serious. And I was like, okay, this is the moment of history, and I'm not going to miss it out. So I grabbed my camera, and I was like, I'm going to go downtown, I'm going to take some pictures of it, because I want to be, like being an art student, you're like, I need to go there and just see this and all that. And then that's when my back then was my boyfriend, that was my husband, came home, because he was already working in a law firm. He was a paralegal law firm in the Midtown. And then he saw what I was going out, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I got to take pictures of this. Yes. I cannot miss it." And he's like, "Are you insane? We can declare martial law any second." I was like, "What's martial law?" He was like, "What's happening?" And he's like, "You are not holding an American passport. That means you can be, put away." And I was like, because as I say, I was like 10 o'clock in the morning. Still, not much information has come out, right? Mm-hmm. We just hear maybe there's another plane hit Pentagon and all that stuff, but we still didn't know what's happening. But he has that sense of saying, okay, if you're going anywhere, you need to bring your passport, and I'm coming with you, because he feels like at least he being American, he can be more protective of me. So we were trying to go downtown, where everybody was trying to go uptown. Right. Until when we hit, I think it was around somewhere Prince Street and Soho, and somebody just yelled a bomb. Like, bang, bang. Like I said, nobody knew what's happening. Yeah. But when somebody just screamed, bomb, you ran. Yeah, run. you ran. So we would just start running for our lives. And again, I still don't know what really happened. And I think that was the exact moment when Tower 1 came down. Yeah. So we were running for our life, but we didn't know what I was running for. And then we were very good staying in our apartment, so we didn't go anywhere. yeah, so that was the experience.
What an experience. And you said that was your graduation
year? So I was still very mad at our school. Did not refund me that first month of tuition.
Right.
We just didn't have school for that entire month. Yeah, like people, everybody say that's keep our life normal, but it was very difficult. But for especially the first 2 weeks, people just don't know what was happening, and but it was amazing how like the Broadway opened so fast right after that. I think it was a sense of nobody can beat the Americans, so we need to go back to our life as well. So when Broadway closed down for COVID for almost the entire year, it was a huge thing because that never happened. That didn't happen during 9/11. 9/11, I think, only shut down for 2 weeks. Broadway only shut down for 2 weeks, and it went on right away. And for COVID, that's what really hit them.
I can remember, watching it at that time, and the baseball and the mayor at the time, and everybody getting back into normal. But what a time in
so
history.
You got to remember, I was there when Giuliani was the mayor, right? And so who knew Giuliani would turn out to be such a psycho years later? But back in the days, he was the hero. You know, everybody looked up to him, and not to Bush so much, especially New Yorkers, right? It just didn't. But we looked up to Giuliani to come to the TV and report to tell us what's happening every day. We deliver the news. So when he went completely cuckoo to the other side, I was just like, what happened to you?
And that's what our world is so crazy at the moment, because now Bush looks like
normal.
Normal person. You know what I mean?
He was a president.
Yeah, he comes on and he's like, I'm looking all right now. Look at me. Look at me.
Yeah, Bush was okay. That's the crazy part. You're right.
So you finished there in New York. Did you stay there for a little longer, or did you want to get out of there straight away?
Because of 9/11, my mom was pretty much saying get out there as soon as you get your diploma. So I think I got my plane tickets after the graduation, like 2 weeks after graduation.
Right.
I told my husband that I don't want to stay here. I don't think it's a good time for me to stay, but I don't really want to go home either. So we decided to go back to New Zealand for a year and a half.
That's really cool.
That was very important to me.
That was
very important to me to go back from that extreme. You know, I needed to go to somewhere where it can ground me. It was very important. Like I said, I become so cynical after 4 years in New York. I didn't like the way I sound. I was hating everything. I was looking at everything was something wrong. Something's wrong with the world. And I needed to go back to a place where people talk slower. People a lot calmer. Yes. People don't swear that much. I just needed to be back there. Yes. Mm-hmm. So that was very important to me.
And I think the New Zealand and the Australian, we have a very laid back attitude and very, look at it at both sides and say, okay.
And I forgot how normal people live their life and what matters, because after a couple of years in New York, and that's something I need to watch out in Shanghai as well, you become too greedy.
But you can understand where they're coming from with some people there, because it's such a cutthroat lifestyle.
You needed to be like that in order to survive, really. But in another sense, I didn't really like who I become. And that was a huge problem for me. Greed
and power.
Yeah, and then you start, you ask people how much money you make before you even get to know that person. And I didn't really like that. I was caring more about the money than the actual project. And I was like, come on, I was like 22 and I cannot live my life like that.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tony Fair, founder of Victorian Grooming Company. Is your beard feeling dry or the skin underneath itchy? Maybe you'd rather soften and tame your beard instead. Our classic collection of beard oils, balms, and soaps will leave your beard looking, feeling, and smelling amazing. And if you prefer shaving, our pre-shave oils and shave soaps will give you a smooth and razor burn-free shave. Handmade in Edmonton with natural ingredients. Visit VictorianGrooming.com.